Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Mark. This is Riffle, Shuffle, and Roll, and today we are kicking off episode 2 of Card Talk, and we will be reviewing Pitch. And this is a big game to review. I've been playing it a lot, and I'm excited to talk about it. If you're following along with me on BGG, on Board Game Geek, then you have a good feeling. You already know how I feel about this game. But I can elaborate a little more. Dewey and his decimals is in the house. Hello, Dewey. Always good to see you. Just a reminder that at the end of the review, I have time for questions and comments. So make sure to leave those in the chat because I'll go through the chat and address those at the end. And if anything pops up that I feel like I need to address immediately, I will during the review. All right, let's move on. Let's get rolling on this thing. So, yeah, Pitch. Let's get right into the overview. Pitch is a trick-taking card game, usually played in partnerships with 4 players, 2 versus 2. It is a point trick game where players are trying to capture the high, low, and jack, as well as a game point. Now that is 4-point pitch, which I think is a really great entry level way to play. There are a ton of variations, which we're going to talk about a little bit. Now, 4-point pitch is a descendant of all fours. All Fours is a much older version. I believe All Fours, earliest documentation of All Fours is in the 1700s, like early 18th century. Or it's either 1700s or 17th century. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But it is, a few hundred years ago. And then in the mid-19th century, I believe, is when it was adopted in the States, brought over, and it started to transform a little bit. Now, like I said, 4-point pitch is most reminiscent of All Fours. I am going to give All Fours some more time on its own. And I think the best way to sum up the difference between the two is All Fours is like turnip euchre. There is a turnip card that determines trump, and there's a lot more that goes into that part of the game, the turnip and the bid. Now, and 4-point pitch is more like bid euchre because players will bid and the bid winner gets to determine trump, and then the play goes from there. There's a really nice parallel between the two, and although All Fours is older than euchre, it's interesting how they're both pitch and euchre are American games and Americanization of European games. But so 4-point pitch, high, low, jack, and game point. There's a secondary scoring system, kind of like with Scopa and the prime point, where aces, kings, queens are all worth 4, 3, and 2 points. Aces, kings, queens, jacks are worth 1. And then 10s are worth 10 points for that secondary scoring system. So there is a really big importance placed upon capturing those 10s if you want to win the game point. So there are 4 points available each round. Highest trump card in play, lowest trump card in play, the jack, the trump suited jack, and the game point, which is won by capturing the most of those point cards in the secondary scoring system. It seems like a lot, but really, it's not bad at all. You just really need to keep your eye out for the 10s, and the game point kind of takes care of itself. And then players bid. So starting left of dealer, everybody has a 6-card hand. Players bid on how many points they think they're going to take as a team, and the bid winner sets trump. And that is the basis of 4-point pitch. And basically, aside from the point values, that's the gist of all of the different variations of pitch. This is it's a point trick game. You for 4-point pitch, you play to 11, and then there's an increasingly larger number of points to determine the winner as you go up in the point count variations. All right. Now, availability, this is a no-brainer. This is played with a standard deck of cards. You do need to have face cards that... It does help to have the face cards match up with what you're doing. So you could play this with a color number deck like Rook, but I think it actually does play a little better using those face cards, especially since you're looking for the Jack. I guess if you are accustomed to a color and number deck like Rook, then you're going to be just fine assigning those point values to the number cards as needed, and it's not really going to affect the gameplay too much. Where are my docs? There they are. Now, so yes, this game is playable very easily. All you need is a full deck of cards, and you do need the full deck. For the larger point counts, you will need 2 jokers as well, and the jokers need to look different from each other. All right, mechanisms and features. So there are 3 mechanisms that drive this game. You've got the bid, you've got the trick taking, and then the trump call. So those are the 3 mechanisms that move this game forward. Again, players bid on how many points they think they can take as a team, and the bid winner gets to call trump, and then that trump suit is the most powerful suit for the round, and then the point cards are lying within that suit. Now, there are a bunch of different features. There are scoring features that I've talked about briefly here at the beginning of the video, and then there are some different rule variations, some little rule setting features that you can change to make the game really how you want to play it. Now, the most basic way, or the best way to play 4-point, in my opinion, is to allow the dealer to steal. So that is one variation, that is one rule setting that I really like. If the dealer is allowed to steal, they get to bid an equal number to the highest bid so far. The dealer bids last, so they are kind of at a disadvantage. So if the bid comes to them and the bid is 3, they do not have to bid 4 like you normally would. Typically, you have to bid higher than the previous bid. But the dealer is able to steal the bid by simply saying 3 as well. So I think that is a really nice rule because it forces people not to bid lazily. You really need to bid what you think you're going to take and not go under, because the dealer could just take it from you. For example, for a 4-point pitch, a 2 bid is the minimum. If you just bid 2, it's safe, but that's very, very easy for the dealer to steal. And if you've bid 2 and then the bid gets around the table, the dealer really might as well just bid 2 because it's such an easy bid to make. And you can sort of count on your partner for 1. What's going on here? Now, the other rule feature that I usually turn on, that is pretty standard with Trickster, is the opening with trump. So the first trick must be led with the trump suit, and that's a must. Now, the other thing is that you may trump. So that's another interesting feature about this game. Players can follow suit, or they can trump the trick. It's not a must-follow game unless trump is led. So in that case, if trump has led the trick, you must play trump if you have it. So there's a little bit of flexibility there for players to jump in and take a trick. And that really comes in handy if you've got a point card in your hand that is unguarded. So you've got this clean trick laid out on the table, and you've got the jack, for instance. It's smart to take that trick with the jack, because otherwise you might have that jack stolen from you by a higher card, by your opponents. So that's with 4-point trick. Now, that gets into the mechanisms a little bit. The trick taking mechanism. It's a May trump game, and the bid, there is typically a minimum bid that must be, you can't just bid one. In a 4-point game, you have to bid two. And then in some of the higher point games, like 10-point pitch, you have to bid a minimum of 5. And, a big part of the game is the bidding. Because, as you'll see with the higher point value games, there's a pretty decent card exchange after the bid. So you can gamble a little bit on what you think you're going to be able to take after the exchange. Now, as far as scoring features goes, this is where the game really blows up and becomes exactly what you want it to be. Now, I went through and played all the different point variations on Trickster. I started with 4 and then played 5, 6, 7, 8. Is there an 8? 5, 5, 6, and 9 point, and all of them. I can even just double check them right now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, and 13. There are that many point variations. And the big change happens at 7 point. Now, all that means is with those higher point variations, you've got more points available in play. So with the jump to 5 point, they add the second jack to the ranking. So you've got the same colored jack becomes a point. When you jump to 6 point, you add a joker. And then when you jump to 7 point, you add the second joker. And that really threw me off in the beginning because the jokers sit between the 10 and the jack. And I think that's going to really confuse people who are not accustomed to that at all. With my experience teaching euchre to others, just having a second jack join the trump suit blows people's minds. It just completely throws them off their game. So having that in there, plus 2 jokers that are just arbitrarily put between the 10 and the jack, can throw people off in the beginning. It takes them some getting used to. Now, when you get up to the higher point count, so with the 10-point pitch, which Trickster says is one of their more popular versions, you add the trump suited 3 as a 3-point card. And that makes it interesting because you've got this lower ranking card that can really help you make your bid. But I've got a more preferred version. I really like the 9-point better. With 9 point, it's high, low, jack, and the game point, and that's your 4. But there's also the 5, the trump suited 5, which is weighted with, it's worth 5 points towards your game score. And I think that makes it very, very interesting because the minimum bid for that was either 4. I think it was 4, but it might have been 5. No, I think it was 3, 4, 5, and then you can keep going up to 9. But you once you get past 5, or once you get past 4, you absolutely have to capture that trump suited 5. Because if you don't, you're getting set. So if you don't have that 5 in your hand, you're praying that you either get it in the exchange, or you get it, or your partner has it and they feed it to you. Now, so that's kind of a bigger difference here. Now, okay, so, oh man, there's just so much with this game. Let's get into the exchange. So that is a feature that comes up with the higher point value. As soon as you get into the 7-point game, you start to see a card exchange. And now there is a rule setting you can turn on where the bid winner gets 3 cards from the kitty. And I typically do not play with that because I think that's too much of a gimme in those lower point value games. But when you get up into the higher point value games, especially 10-point pitch, where you will see a huge card exchange. In 10-point pitch, you after the bid and after the trump suit is set, each player will dump all of their non-trump cards, and then they are dealt back up to 6. And that is just crazy. I've seen so many bids come to fruition with no more than 2 cards of that suit in my hand before the exchange. And then you pull a little slot lever on that exchange and you get dealt gold and you get your bid. So that was fun. That was really fun in its own way, but 9-point dials it back. So 9-point has the heavier 5-point card in the trump suit, but the exchange is much smaller. Players do not just dump all their non-trump cards. Instead, each player must choose 3 to 6 cards, because you're dealt 9 in the beginning. Instead of 6, you're dealt 9. You must dump 3 to 6 of your cards. If you get rid of 3, that means you're happy with your hand and you're left with the 6 cards remaining. But if you get rid of 4, 5, or 6, you will be given 1, 2, or 3 more cards from the kitty. So there is a small card exchange there, a small chance of improving your hand. And I like that better than turning on the kitty feature, because for that it's only the dealer. And I think the dealer already has an advantage, having won the bid and being able to set trump. So I think the dealer already gets enough of an advantage. If there's going to be a card exchange, I think it needs to be for everybody. And although 10-point is fun because of that huge card exchange, 9-point dials it back and I think balances it out really well. So with 9-point, you get the small card exchange, so you do get a little bit of a gamble with the bid. The exchange helps to ensure that most or all of the card points will be out in play. And you've got that 5-point card, which is vital. You have to capture it, unless you can get away with a low bid of 4 or 3. But even 4 is going to be hard to do. So as you can see, I am leaning more towards 9-point as my overall way to play. Yeah. Okay, so in summary, because there is a lot there, really, that is why pitch is so great, is because of all of these different ways to play and these different features that you can activate within the game to really make it the game you want to play. Now, on the other hand, that could make it a little overwhelming for people who are not familiar with this sort of game. All right. Now, I talked about a lot there, and I know I jumped around from version to version to version, but it's important. I just want to encapsulate it all in this. So, there we go. In summary, you've got an excellent bidding system that can become more or less gambly depending on the version you're playing. You've got interesting trick play because of the May Trump rule. And then you've got wonderful placement of point cards, especially in the versions that throw in a lower ranking card that is worth more points. In 10-point, it is the 3 that is worth 3 points. In 9-point, it's the 5. It is worth 5 points. In 13-point, you throw in an extra 3, the same colored 3. In 11-point, you throw in the same colored ace, which changes the way the game feels pretty nicely. I've dipped my toes in 11-point just a little bit, and I talked about it a little bit on Board Game Geek, but I haven't really played it enough to decide whether I like it as much as 9-point. I do want to lean more towards that than 10 point. I think I would prefer 11 over 10 because that second ace really throws a nice little wrinkle in the game. And then you've got that game point, which some variations don't use, but that secondary scoring system, just like in Scopa with the prime point. You can, like in 4-point pitch, that game point is important because even if you can't capture the high, low, and the jack, even if you can't get that, you can keep collecting that game point each round, and those points will add up. And I guess one more thing I want to throw out there. In the higher point versions, it is not high, low, and jack. It is locked in. You have to capture the ace and the 2 and the jack. So you need those in play. And I think it's okay for that to be that way because of the card exchange. It really does almost guarantee that those points will be in play and available for capture. So I think that pretty much sums up, all the main points for the mechanisms and features of pitch and why I really love it. Now I'm gonna hit the chat real quick. I see a couple comments. So Dewey asked, how do the two jokers rank with each other? So on Trickster, there's a red joker and a black joker, and the red joker is higher than the black. So in ascending order from 10 on, it would go 10, black joker, red joker, and then same colored jack, and then trump jack, and then queen, king, ace. And then strategic dice. Hey, I didn't say hi to you in the beginning. Thanks, I'm glad to see you in the chat here. So the exchange happens between the undealt deck instead of between players. Yes, thank you. The remaining cards form the kitty, and which is kind of a bad name for it because the kitty rule kind of makes you think you're turning that feature on. So let's say 10-point pitch, every player is dealt 9 cards, so that's 36 cards. The remaining cards form the rest of the deck. And after the bid, players will dump all their non-trump, and then they are given, X number of cards to replace them from the deck, from the leftover cards. And then it works its way around, and the bid winner is limited to whatever's left. So if there's only 3 cards left in the deck, then they can only dump enough to get those 3. Oh, sneezed on live camera. So the exchange happens between players and the remaining cards. And, the kitty size. With 4-point pitch, each player's dealt 6 cards. There's only 24 cards out in play. So, just over half the deck is remaining out of play, which is going to ruffle a lot of people's feathers. They're going to want more cards in play. But I love that. I love that feature because it does add a little element of gambling when you're bidding, because the card you need, like the jack might be out of play, and there might only be one 10 in play, and those cards are important for the game point. So if there's only one 10 in play, whoever captures it has a really good chance of winning that game point. And I think we're kind of segueing here into the next category, which is gameplay. The next topic. Well, I've pretty much described everything, how it goes, how it works. And again, if there's any other questions, make sure to throw them in the chat. And if you're watching, sound off. Let me know you're here. Again, I will give more time to comments and questions at the end, unless I see that it's like pertinent to what I'm talking about right now. Gameplay. I think this game is incredibly fun. It is so much fun for all the reasons I described within the mechanisms and features section. I love the huge stack of leftover cards after the deal in 4-point. I love the dealer gets to steal the bid feature. I love how that affects the game. And I love that the points may not be in play. I really enjoy the secondary scoring system. And I felt very comfortable playing this game, having played bid euchre and even turnip euchre in the past. It was a nice, easy transition. Now, what's interesting though is I tried to play this game about a year and a half ago, and I just didn't get it. But at that time, I had not played, maybe 2 years ago. It's been a while since I tried it the first time. Since that time, I had not played point trick games where cards had a point value you needed to capture. That was a whole new concept. It was a very foreign way for me to play, and I just didn't get it. But here, I've been playing pitch for a couple weeks now, and I've got 35 games in the past week and a half or so. And man, that second time coming around to it, everything just clicked. I was like, this feels like bid euchre, but with point cards, and I think that makes it better because it does not matter how many tricks you win. It matters how many cards you capture, like the specific cards. So I really like that. That 4-point, if you're going to learn the game, I suggest starting with 4-point. And then if you want to explore all the different point versions, that's fine. I think you'd be good for doing that because then you can find the way you like. But if you want kind of the crib notes, play 4-point, play 10-point on Trickster, and then from my point of view, play 9, and I don't think you need to do anything else. Yeah, the game. Yeah, so I don't want to keep elaborating on the same points, or I don't want to keep kicking, or I don't want to keep beating the horse here. You guys get it. There's a lot going on in the game, but it's still pretty easy to learn. I think if you settle on 4-point to teach newbies, I think it'll be easy to pick up, even if they're not used to point trick games. I think the idea of capture the highest card possible, capture the lowest card, capture the jack, and then look out for 10s. That's all there is to it. Audience. Well, I guess I kind of segued into that too. I think 4-point pitch is a fine game to teach your family. I think it's a good family get-together game. I think it's a fine game to teach to people who are familiar with card games but new to trick taking. I think the bidding system and the point system will make it a challenge for younger players who are not accustomed to trick takers. But I think it'll be easier for adults to wrap their head around how to capturing those cards and how to bid appropriately. Now those are layers that make the game more complex. Like a turnip euchre, there's a turnip card to call trump. So you don't need to think about numbers, necessarily. You're not bidding. There's no bidding phase. You're just saying, yes, that is good for me. No, that is not. But with pitch, you need to think about the cards and your position within that suit and how easily you're going to be able to capture those cards that matter. So I think this is a fine game for beginners, and although it will be a bit of a challenge, I think the fun factor outweighs the challenge of those different layers of complexity in regard to newer players. I think if you want a game to kind of warm them up to this idea, then you might want to go. I would suggest euchre, but then again, I grew up with the Bowers, and it was never it was uncomfortable at first, but I got used to it. And I've just grown up with it. Maybe a whist where it's just ace high, and there's a trump suit, and there's nothing. There's some whist games without a lot going on. You might want to teach whist and then move them into something like pitch. But I think overall, this is a great game. There's tons of stories and videos on YouTube and little blog posts. And I've come across so many things of families playing this game. This is a very traditional game played by generations. It's passed down. And that's why there are so many variations, because not only do regions have their own way to play, but families have their own way to play too. And it's just so cool. Obviously, this is themeless. This is played with a 52 card deck. I do get a sense of baseball for some reason. I think just with the terms, the person who calls bid is the pitcher. And it feels very, the fact that it came around in the mid 1800s, which was right around, I believe, baseball started to become an American pastime as well. And it's just got this element of kind of a sport. I just like it. I really like that. All right, final thoughts, and then we'll get into, I do see a question over there. Overall, I love this game. It is my number one trick taker on the list. If you want to see any of my lists or game rankings, follow me on Board Game Geek. I've linked to all the lists. I have my general card games I've played and the thoughts to go with them, which any card game I play will go on there with either an in-depth review or just some initial thoughts, and then with more comments added. I've got my top trick taker list, which those are the games that are must plays in my eyes. These are the games that I think deserve to be shared and taught. And then you've got my Anytime, Anywhere award-winning games, which are the cream of the crop. These are the best of the best in my eyes. And then there's my newer list, the Trickster 9, where I am going into extreme detail about all the games on Trickster, all 9 games, and all the different variations and features that they offer. So I've got a very in-depth write-up on pitch. And I'm not done with it yet, even though I am about finished with the review, the official reviewing process. There are a few modes that I really want to dive into deeper. So, this game is number 1 on my top trick taker list right now. It has shoved Jekyll versus Hyde aside to second place, and yeah, pitch is at the top. This is my game. This is my game. I've never felt this excited about a game. And it's Jekyll versus Hyde is awesome, but I think pitch is a little more versatile. It can be played with a regular deck of cards. It can be played at different player counts, anywhere from 3 to 6. And I think you can play with 2. I've seen some rules. I haven't really looked at them too closely, but I think the game might be playable at 2 with some nice modifications. You can play in partnerships. You can play free-for-all. And I see Dewey. I see your question down there. I'm going to get to that. I got to talk about the different player counts. And you can play with a shortened deck. Those are features on Trickster that I haven't even messed with. You can cut out all the non-important cards and just cut right to the chase. So it is an extremely versatile game. It is accessible by anybody with a deck of cards. It can be easy to teach, and then you can increase the complexity of the game by adding more point cards and card exchanges and however you want to do it. The dealer steals, have the kitty option for the bid winner. For me, it is the perfect game. Now, for people who do not like the elements of luck and gambliness that it has in it, it's not going to be perfect. It might not even be a top game. But if there's a game that epitomizes everything that I love about playing cards, it is Pitch. So it is number one on my top trick taker list. It is it has gotten the rating of very fun, top notch. I'm not sure what I have it ranked as on Board Game Geek right now, but it's a 9. I don't think there are any 10s. So I don't think I've given anything a 10. Maybe Uno, just to be a troll, but it's a 9, and it would be a 10 if I thought there was such a thing as a perfect game. And it's a AAA winner. This is an anytime, anywhere game, especially due to its versatility. And you can get people in on the game that don't know how to play very easily. You can get the game moving. It is a fast-paced game. 4-point pitch is played to 11. That goes very quickly. I'm trying to jam-pack as much as I can in this review without overwhelming you. If you want to find out more about it, go back and watch my playthroughs. I've got 2 live playthroughs that demonstrate the best point counts in my opinion, and I've got write-ups on Board Game Geek, so you can really see what I'm seeing. You can look through my eyes by watching all that stuff. So as you can expect, how to play videos for this are coming. These are going to be a topmost priority for me. I want to get this game out there. I want people to start seeing the game, learning how to play the game, and I want to start attracting people who already play so we can get some stuff going online. If I can get something of an organization going where we can start playing organized matches routinely, that is what I want to do. So all that is coming. I have to get some stuff off my plate before I can really dive in, which is just driving me crazy. But yeah, Pitch. Lots of good things coming for Pitch. All right, let's do some questions. I don't think I made... Did I make a slide for that? I did. All right, so there's one question in the chat. If you guys have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them there before we get going. Have you tried, from Dewey here, have you tried 3-player on Trickster? If so, how does it compare to 4-player and 2v2? I have not tried 3-player yet, but I have played 4-player free-for-all, and I think that is a very compelling way to play. I played the 4-player free-for-all with 9-point, and I really, really liked it. I love the dynamic of being able to give points that you know you're not going to be able to get to an opponent who's losing to keep your rival from getting them. So in my match that I played last night, I had a couple opportunities to give points to the people who were way back in score, just to keep them from the player that ended up beating me. But she would have beat me faster if I wouldn't have done that. So I like that dynamic of being able to use your opponents to help beat that one person who's got the lead. And I did play 6-player 2v2v2, and I wasn't quite as impressed with that. Or did I play? No, I didn't play 6. Pardon me. I played 5-player with one of the point counts, and I can't remember which one it was. But I played 5, and that one, it didn't quite do it for me. The bid winner calls for a card, and then that player who has that card is their partner. And they must play that card on the first trick. So it's, bada bing, bada boom. You've got a 2-point trick starting the game right off the bat, or more if you can call on the 3. I think I was playing 10-point. So if you're sitting there with the ace, you call on the 3 or the 2 or the jack. They have to play it. They're your partner. You got those points right off the bat. If you're sitting there with the king or the queen or something like that, You call on the ace, and then you throw out a point card when you lead the first trick. And bam, your team's got the points. Yeah, I wasn't super impressed with 5-player. I think the 6-player, 3 teams of 2, I think that's going to be pretty fun. So I still have to dive into that. And then the 4-player free-for-all was pretty interesting. I really want to try 3-player, although the only drawback to that is there will be fewer cards in play. So without a decent card exchange, there's a good chance that point cards are going to be in the deck instead of out in play, which will make bidding higher a little harder and a little more gambly. And again, like I said, I found some 2-player variant rules, and I haven't had a chance to mess with those because that's not an option on Trickster, I don't think. So got to play test that. Now, one more question from Strategic Dice. Yes, in the how to play videos, is 9-point going to be its own video? It absolutely is. I want to first, I am going to have a set way to play each game. Although you can do dealer steals and you can have the kitty exchange, and you can make it must trump or must follow. You can have all these different features. I am going to have a set structure for the game, and that's how I'm going to teach it the way I like it most. So I will teach 4-point with dealer steals. I will teach 9-point with the regular card exchange, no kitty. And I will have May Trump, and I'm going to have the rule settings that I have found after 35 plays that I think work the best and balance the game the most. So I am for sure going to teach 4-point, 9-point, and 10-point. And those will be their own full videos, and I will do each one as if I haven't talked about any of the others. And I'm just going to assume that the person watching doesn't know how to play the others. And what I'm finding is I'm getting comments from people who play a certain way that have never seen or heard of the way that I played on my videos. And it just goes to show you how many different ways to play there are. All right, Dewey and his decimals. With all the customizable options and point variants, do you feel like some ways to play pitch are different enough that it feels like a completely different game? Or do the variants meld well together? Honestly, so 4-point pitch is essentially all 4s. It's all 4s with bidding. But it has its own name. And I think it's the bidding that really makes it its own game. Whereas all 4s, there's a turnip card. And there's a little more going on with how the turnip card works. So it's essentially like, to me, like I said earlier, it's the difference between turnip euchre and bid euchre. They're both euchre, and I think it's the jacks that make them euchre, the Bauer system, it makes that euchre. But bid has a very different feel than turnip. 4-point pitch has a very different feel than all 4s. But 9-point is just 4-point with that 5-point card. That's a lot of points. I hope that's not confusing. But 9-point pitch is just 4-point pitch with another scoring card in there that's worth 5. And then there is that card exchange. So I guess if you combine that card exchange really does change the way the game feels. So I would still consider it a variant, not necessarily its own game. Because the card exchange is only, at most, you're getting 3 new cards and everybody gets to do it, which allows people to bid a little more aggressively. So I don't really think that makes it its own game. I think those are nice adjustments that actually make the game more competitive during the bidding phase, getting people to be more aggressive, and then it makes it more gambly during the trick-taking phase because you got to get that 5. If that 5's out of play, you're not getting your bid. Now, 10-point is where I would say this is a completely different game the nature of it. The bait, like the skeleton of pitch is still there with the ace, the 2, and the jack, but the game point's gone. Now you're trying to capture the trump 10. There's the 3 is worth 3 points, so that's an additional point card. You're not collecting cards for a game point. That's gone. And there's the huge card exchange after the bid, where you're just dumping all your trump or your non-trump, and then you're only playing with trump cards. And again, those are all features that can be adjusted, but the fact that you're only playing with your trump cards kind of makes the game go faster. You're just cutting right to the chase. But that combined with all those other changes, 10-point pitch just really could be. I feel like it could be its own game. If at some point, if that variation would have just gotten its own name, I don't think anybody would have said, oh, this is just a pitch variant. I think people would have seen the resemblance, but they'd been like, wow, this is crazy. Now, I can't find other rules online for 10-point. I haven't yet. With the huge exchange of the cards. I've done a little digging, but I haven't found anything where people are dumping all their non-trump for just a big old exchange. And I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if Trickster came across that because they know people who play that way, or if they just did that by design, by their design. So, yeah, if you travel down the road and go from 4-point up to 13, you're going on quite a journey. And I think it's really cool to play all the versions and see how they feel and how different they are. And you'll make that transition from no exchange to a wild exchange. And then it's also been a nice lesson in game design, because you see why these features were added. You realize, oh, well, for 13-point and 10-point, you have to have this big exchange, because we have got to get as many point cards out and play as possible, or else this is not fun. So from here, I am going to continue playing the different features. I want to play the 6-player mode. I want to play the 3-player mode. And I need to get that done. I want to get some stuff written up on that. But then I'm going to be moving on to 500, because that's the only game on there that I haven't played yet on Trickster. So, I think I'm going to be done. All right, there's no more questions in the chat. In summary, pitch is awesome. Check the description down below. I've got links to all my Board Game Geek lists. I really suggest getting on there and following along. It's a great community. You can follow with what I'm doing. You can kind of get a through my eyes look or behind the scenes look at what I'm playing and my thoughts behind those games. And yeah, this has been fun. A little longer than I wanted to be, but I guess I had a lot to say, and pitch is a pretty big game to talk about. So I want to say thank you to Dewey and Strategic Dice for hanging out in the chat, and whoever else is watching, thank you for your time. I hope you found this review helpful. I will be back next week with a Monday night episode of Shoot the Moon. Next Tuesday, I will be playing 500. And then next Wednesday, I will be reviewing something. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a commercial game rather than a traditional one. So that is it from me. Everybody have a good one. And until next time, keep on playing.